I find myself leading the race, and we'd been leading it a lot, going down the back straightaway, and Richard was behind me, and Dale and Benny was behind me, and we had checked out on the field. And this little voice spoke to me and said, "Lake, what you gonna do if you win here too?" I couldn't get away from that, hearing that voice. I started crying out.
The following is a production of Dirty Mo Media. All right, so Lake Speed's out in the lobby, just right outside the door here, waiting to come in and do his interview. And Lake Speed has a very recognizable name. Some people may know some of the high points in his career, especially his win at Darlington, or maybe more recognizable being the WKA 1978 World Championship World Karting Champion and beating Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna was in that race, along with probably many other talented drivers that went on to have decent careers in Europe and F1 and so forth. So either way, I mean, we always marveled at the fact that Lake Speed has that on his resume. But that's all I know. I don't know how he got there. I don't know any of the details. I've been, kind of curious all of my life about how Lake Speed, this guy that came from nothing in terms of a racing lineage, became a world karting champion. He won national championships and all kinds of stuff, but he became the world karting champion. How in the hell does a guy out of Jackson, Mississippi just create that opportunity for himself? Well, we're going to learn that. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get into the other details around the Cup stuff, the Raymok race at Daytona, his reaction to that, his faith. He's very heavy into his faith, which I think we'll have to talk about. And also, we'll talk to him. I'll ask him about the Michael Waltrip deal on pit road at Michigan. I won't leave that out. I know that'll be important for a lot of people. I'm not sure how much he'll open up about that. That's not really probably a fun experience for him. But yeah, so we'll see what we get to. It's gonna be a fun conversation. I'm ready to get started. Let's bring Lake into the room. You got some notes?
Yeah, I got me a cheat sheet here.
That's
remember,
good.
Because I'm gonna tell you what. When you get to be 77 years old, there's a lot of stuff that starts not working quite like it used to.
It happens before
then.
then.
And this memory thing is, I've always been terrible about remembering people's names. Because, you know how it is. You're out there and you're meeting how many people every week?
Yeah.
You expect to remember all them.
I know.
I just gave up.
Yeah.
And quit.
Yeah.
So
I was the same way. I always admired like Rick, Hendrick, and certain people. My sister Kelly, they can remember everybody.
Yeah.
And we'll walk into a room and they'll go, "That's such and such. That's the PR manager for this, or the person for that, or the person that does this for this company." I'm like, I used to just be like, "How do y'all remember all that?" Like, I can't remember that. Yeah. Even if I tried, I couldn't do it. I'd have to study all day. Well, Lake Speed, it's awesome to have you here. As you mentioned, 77 years old, Cup Series winner, and 1978 World Karting Champion, car owner, driver. Had a lot of success over the years, and you've got a hell of a story, so I'm excited to learn more about it today. I was able to fortunately be kind of plugged into the sport as a little kid and a big fan throughout the 80s, and I remember, we'll get to this in a bit, but the very first memory I think I have that has any relation to you is when you must have been renting over where Osterlin was. So this was right around the very front end of 1981, and you had your orange and green Oldsmobile, number 66.
Yeah.
And I was probably 7. And
probably. I remember you running around there.
I remember that car, and but we'll get to that in a bit. One of the things I want to get to is just the incredible accomplishment of winning the 1978 FIA Karting World Championship. But how did you even get involved in racing as a kid?
Started out with a kid, lived just a little ways away. He got a 2-seater go-kart for Christmas one year, and we rode that thing everywhere, we could. And we lived up pretty far out in the country, so it was a development there, but the development was just at the very beginning of it happening. So there was a lot of dirt roads in between and whatever.
What part of the country is this?
This is Jackson, Mississippi. And so we rode that thing till it fell apart. And it was a friend of mine. It wasn't mine. And then I wound up talking my folks into buying me a little single-seat go-kart. It had, it was the yard cart, knobby tires on all that stuff. Well, when I wore a oval track in the front yard, my mother said, "That's got to go."
Yeah.
And so my return to her was, well, let's get me one that's got slicks on it, got racing slicks on it. It won't tear the yard up. So they wound up letting me get a go-kart with racing slicks on it. About that time, another kid in the neighborhood comes on Christmas morning, and we hear all this loud racket outside. Go outside and look, and here he comes up the street. He's got a real racing go-kart.
Oh.
Straight header on it, all this stuff. And I said, man, that looks pretty cool. I'd been fooling with horses all my life. My family liked horses and whatever. And I'd done a little junior rodeoing with them, barrel racing and this, that, and the other. And I wound up getting a big old horse that looked like Charles Atlas, and it threw me off right in the middle of practicing one day. And I was mad and tried to land standing up because I was going to whoop that sucker.
Yep.
Broke my leg, just broke both bones in the leg. And I got to thinking, I said, that thing, I won't, that go-kart doesn't have a brain. So I think I'm going to do away with the horses and just work on this kart thing.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of my karting.
Your brother apparently raced a little bit as well. Is he older than you?
Older, yeah. I had one brother was 8 years older, then another one was 16 years older than me. The 8-year-older he was a wild man. He was into trouble all the time. He called himself the black sheep of the family kind of thing. But so he kind of was instituted talking my mother into getting me the racing go-kart.
Okay.
And that was the beginning. And my dad took me to the first go-kart race that I ever went to. And that's the only one he ever went to.
Why?
He said, "This is total foolishness. You're crazy."
Oh.
Just.
How old were you?
Huh? Probably, I'm guessing I was kind of go back and looking at school ages and whatever. I'm going to say maybe 13.
Yeah.
12, 13,
Man.
Something like that. Maybe 14.
He thought it was a waste of time.
Oh, yeah. He was a businessman.
Yeah.
You have to understand his background. He was one of 8 kids, I think 7 boys, and grew up out in the sticks down in South Mississippi on a dirt farm. They were just plowing a mule. And he said one day, I'm tired of looking back in this mule. I think I'm going to go to the big city, see if I can because nobody down here nothing happened with their lives. So he went to the big city, and the year I was born, he was a mayor.
Damn.
Of the city. And he went there, 8th grade education, and just worked hard, straight with people, and did really well.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of his background. He was all business.
Yeah.
I asked him one time, I said, "Dad, how come you don't have a hobby or anything?" He said, "Son, I do have a hobby." He said, "I hunt and fish. Only things I do mine on Capitol Street." I went, huh.
Yeah.
Never thought about it that way. And he said, "I'm really good at it."
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that was it.
So you continued to race, obviously, but how did you handle that without his support, or who was with you?
I found out there were some other kids that had go-karts too. And so I started a little kart business in the garage at the house.
Yeah.
Working with other people's carts, selling parts, buying parts, doing whatever to finance my karting stuff.
Wow.
'Cause Dad, he nothing to do with it.
He didn't appreciate the businessman that you were? Because that's quite impressive.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he did or not. I mean, we had a great relationship as far as me and him went.
Yeah.
But I never remember getting any attaboys or attaboys from it. But like I said, he was just all business. The first race that he took me to, that was the last race that they had at that track. They closed it. I think the next week I went to had a go-kart club. I went to the go-kart club meeting. That was the last meeting. They disbanded the go-kart thing.
Damn. When you went to the races, is this road course, oval?
All
what is
asphalt road course stuff.
And how did you...
stuff about the size of, what they call a GoPro, but now it's track house.
Right.
Tracks like that.
Yep.
That size.
And you developed your own ability, knowledge, mechanical knowledge, just by trial and error.
Like I said, Dad was building this development that we lived in. So he had a lot of construction equipment. It was like a construction company building this thing, putting streets in and plumbing and everything. Well, the black guy that worked for him was kind of his manager guy. And Warren took me with him when I was really little. He'd take me with him every day. Wherever we went, we'd go. I was riding in the pickup truck with him. And I watched that man. There wasn't anything he wouldn't try to fix or work on, do whatever. So I grew up before I even going to school with men all day, building things, doing things, fixing things, and whatever. So I wasn't scared to, when I got that first knobby tire car, one day I said, I wonder what this thing looks like inside this motor.
Mm-hmm.
I'd take something off, put it back on, see if it still runs.
Yeah.
Take a little bit more off the next time to see if it still runs, and I'm trying to figure it out. And then when we started doing the racing part, then I said, these guys are working on these things. So I went over to one of the guys that was supposed to have been really good, and he was showing me some tips on things. And And so then I started letting my mind do it. God just gave me an understanding of how a lot of this mechanical stuff works. It's just.
How did all of this racing fit into your education?
Education kind of got in the way, but other than that, you just went to college.
Where'd you go to college?
Mississippi College. Well, first year I went to Ole Miss. Everybody's heard of Ole Miss.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, went there for a year. Party school, big time. It was crazy. I flunked out, and I said, the first year, and I said, I ain't doing this.
Yeah.
This is stupid.
Yeah.
Just stupid. I want to. Plus, it really hampered my racing stuff. I was, I was too far away. I wasn't getting to work with it. Wasn't getting to race much.
Yeah.
So I went back home. Went to a Christian college. It was right outside of town there. And I'd commute, and that way I could still work on the karts, and doing my kart business was getting a little bigger, and things were going along. And
when you're, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but you brought up going to that Christian college. Everybody knows that's watched you in your NASCAR career knows you're a man of heavy faith. Like it's a big part of your life. Had that always been that way, or was that something that developed through that experience at the college, or was that something that was always part of your household, or?
No, well, our family went to church most every Sunday, unless it wasn't convenient or something. It was a kind of a convenient faith at the time.
Casual.
It wasn't anything serious. I was just going through the motions and doing whatever. And I believed there was a God, but I wasn't talking to him, and he wasn't talking to me, and I was just doing my thing.
Yeah.
Just out there calling myself a Christian. I went down front, joined the church when I was 15 years old, just because I did it on Sunday night when the crowd was low, and I wouldn't embarrass myself anymore.
Yeah.
Well, those kind of things. You just check the box off, kind of thing. I thought I had my ticket to heaven in my pocket, and now I can just go.
Right.
And that was kind of why I was living crazy.
Yeah, you were living crazy.
Yeah, too.
Yeah. Raising hell.
We were the bunch a lot of people talked about. me and some of my friends that I ran with, especially in high school.
Well, as we go through this career of yours and this life, really more than a career, don't let me skip past the part where that started to change for you. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, let me, if you'll give me this grace.
Sure.
The karting thing grew out of the garage. One day I started working went to college. When I got to college, came back from Ole Miss back to Jackson. My dad said, well, why don't you go to work and help me with real estate stuff? I'll give you some job here to do, some things to take care of. So I actually started doing commercial warehouses. He'd been most of the residential stuff they'd done. So we're going to start doing some commercial stuff and get you involved with that, and building some buildings and leasing some stuff and whatever like that. So I was getting my feet on the ground there, but at the same time I was racing the karts. And one day I walked in the office and I told Dad, I said, Dad, I know you think I'm crazy, but I'm going to quit working for you and I'm going to open up a kart shop, go full time. He said, you absolutely lost your mind.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's just what I want to do. He said, well, have at it.
Yeah.
And so I went and rented a place. And
in Jackson?
In Jackson, rented a place and started one of the first mail order go-kart parts places in the country. And I was doing it super cheap.
Yep.
I went in, was wholesaling everything, and
were you working?
The thing blew up.
Were you selling for a specific manufacturer, like Margay or Horseman?
Sold them all.
All of them.
All of them. Everything.
What was your preference?
Oh, back then at that time, whatever was the best one, the hottest one going, I'd run that.
Yeah.
And push it. But we sold stuff all over the country, and then started selling stuff out of the country, exporting and importing stuff.
Damn.
And,
so this thing took off.
Yeah, and 71 was the year, first year I won a national championship. I switched from American-made McCulloughs and all American-made stuff to European engines, and won everything we could win. The end of the season, I'd won my first national championship. The end of the season, the guy that was helping with the motors and whatever, we got an invitation to go to Hong Kong. I said, what? He said, yeah, they got a big race over there, and they pay a lot of money, and they'll pay us to come over there. They'll pay us, and then I'll sell them all the carts, and don't even bring them back. They're going to give me a bunch of money for the carts.
Yeah.
We jumped on an airplane and went to Hong Kong. There's a park right in Hong Kong, in the middle. Big race. They did good. Me and the guy that was with us, we first and second.
And sold you stuff?
Sold stuff, got on the airplane, went back.
Damn.
Then, I don't know what happened. Several years later, somebody tells me there's this world championship thing. I had a really good year. Several years. I won like national championship for like 7 or 8 years in a row.
So I guess I fill in a spot for me between coming back home to college, from going to college locally at home, and getting back to racing and starting your karting business, to winning a national championship. Like, did the winning come, for lack of a better word, did the winning come easy? Was success always part of your experience?
No.
You had to build up to that sort of
prior to changing to the European engine, just doing the McCullough stuff. I was probably overly aggressive, and I just blew them up all the time. I couldn't keep the motors apart. I mean, we'd take a little 2-cycle motor and trying to put nitromethane in the thing to make more power.
Yeah.
I found out years later why I couldn't outrun some of the top guys. They had some parts that were not aftermarket products. They had a lot of titanium parts that they were putting in these motors. And I didn't even know what titanium was.
Yeah.
But anyway, when I changed to the European engine, it was success from then on.
Really?
We were killer from then on.
So when you go to the racetrack in let's just say 1971, when you're winning the national championship, when you go to the racetrack, who's with you? Help me understand.
Me and my wife at the time.
You and her.
Yep.
You didn't have anybody else helping you.
Nope.
You unload the cart. You do any tire treatment?
No, they didn't do tire
Didn't
treatment back then.
Back then?
No.
You got everything ready. As soon as you hit the track, it's ready to go.
I did the motors. I did all the prep. Did everything.
You got
by
a little.
myself.
You got a little.
I still
you
got
working out?
I got a daggum little old. What do you call them wagons? A little old red wagon.
Yeah.
I got the same little old red wagon. I still take it to the kart track today.
Yeah.
That I put my toolbox in and a fuel can in it. And they gave you a place wasn't much bigger than this table
To work
was your
at.
pit when you were at the racetrack.
Yeah.
And you had everything there. And that was the way it was for a long time.
Yeah.
And then before karting really took off.
What was your dad's reaction to your karting business and its success? And then your
Like I said, I never really got any.
even after you went and when you go
Still
home,
thought I
when
was
you
crazy.
go home and sit that at the family reunion, sit that national championship trophy on the table, nothing.
Like nothing.
No. Did you
No,
want?
no.
Did you wish he would have?
Hey, look, my mother never saw me race a go-kart.
It's crazy.
Ever.
That's crazy.
My dad never saw me race but the one kart deal. My mother, when we did the buck stove deal,
Yeah.
that was the first time she ever saw me race
Ever.
with her eyes.
Yeah.
She saw me on TV,
Yeah.
but that was the first time
Yeah.
and the only time she
Dang.
ever got to do it. So when I've watched your show here and watched your stuff,
Yeah.
it seems like everybody that was in it has started out either them or their family or something. It's been a
You
family
was by
tradition kind of stuff
Yeah.
and whatever. And I'm thinking, no wonder people looked at me like I was odd, because I was.
Yeah.
I was the background. I told somebody the other day, I said, well, I guess I came to NASCAR 40 years too early. Because now most all the guys that are coming in are all go-karters.
Yeah.
Well, when I was running, we had never gotten to the point of me going to Europe. After running the business for a while and winning a whole lot of stuff, I forgot what year it was. Well, I know what it was. 73 was the first time I went over there. I'd won 3 national championships, I think, that year or something like that, in the 3 different divisions.
Mm-hmm.
And really confident, overconfident, I guess you might call it. And I said, well, we've won all this stuff. We just need to go on over there. They tell me they got this world championship thing in Europe. We just go over there and kick their butt, too.
Yeah.
And say, just all, we're done. We got it all done. I went over there, and they embarrassed me so bad. There was like over 100 karts. We couldn't even make the main event.
What were you missing?
Main 30. Everything.
Yeah.
It was, their style of racing was completely different. The rules and regulations they used were different. The weight, they had really lightweight kart stuff, which I could get down to the weight without any problem. But our American style equipment was not competitive with what they had.
Yeah.
Their track layouts were a lot of wiggles
Yep.
and a long straightaway.
Yeah.
So the centrifugal clutch was okay with American stuff, but they had direct drive, just chain over the crankshaft.
Yep.
But there's instant response. And when you're in all those wiggles, every time we'd go to hit the throttle, they'd gap me a kart lane while I was waiting for that stupid clutch to engage.
Yeah.
So we didn't even make the main event. We got to watch it.
Yeah.
And me and another guy that I raced with all my life, he'd gone with me over there. And my wife, the wife that I had my first wife, raced herself, and we just did everything together, and that was pretty cool. But after it was over, we're sitting in the parking lot, looking at each other, saying, "Well, we want to just go home and play like this never happened."
Yeah.
we couldn't even make the main top 30 karts, and are we gonna go home and work on this?
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm going home and work on this." So we went back to the house and ordered some European karts and started running them. Even in the States, I was running them it's like running a race with a weight bag on you or something. But I found out, and I think, I woke up one day and I said, when I won the World Championships, I woke up and I said, you know, all that time I was running all those races at a disadvantage, I was just like a runner practicing with weights on. He took the weight off when it was a real race. Yeah. And I think that really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
To make it.
That was in '73 when you went there the first time. Did you go back each year? Mm-hmm. And finally in '78, you won all of it. Yep. Had you come close in those other years?
First year didn't make it. Next year, cool. I came back. One of my competitors in the kart business, he had a big business up in Ohio. He imported a different engine than what I'd been running. I was successful for lots of years there. He calls me up and says, I want to make you a proposition. I said, I understand you didn't have too good a time at the World Championships. He said, you put away all your stuff and start promoting my engine, and I'll get you factory support next year at the World Championships. I said, deal. I didn't have to even hesitate.
Really?
So I just parked all my stuff, and he started supplying the engines for me.
Okay.
And so we ran his stuff, and we went over there that next year. I think the last final of the World Championships, I think I was like 12th or something, 12th, 15th, somewhere right in there.
Yeah.
So that was encouraging. And we went back the next year, and I think I finished 6th. And then before we go back to the following year, he calls me up and tells me, he said, they've sold the business to somebody else, and they're not going to have any factory support anymore.
Yeah.
And I went, dang, what am I going to do now? So I called back the company in Europe that I'd been running their product and selling it.
Yep.
I said, I want to make you guys a proposition. They made several different brands of motors, and the one that they raced, the factory team raced, wasn't imported in the United States. I said, you give me factory support, and I'll start selling that engine
in the
here
US.
In the States.
Yeah.
I'll start marketing and selling it and promoting it here in the United States. And they said, you got a deal. And he said, do you got a go-kart yet? I said, no, I was going to work on that next. He said, well, call Birrell. He said, they'll take care of you. And so I started importing the Birrell kart and the Perla engine.
Oh.
And pushing it. And then I went back over, and I think the next year I finished 5th. And then the next year slipped back to 6th. I think that's right.
Yeah.
6th, 5th, somewhere anywhere. And then the year in '78 was a crucial year for my life. My first wife decided she didn't want to be married anymore.
Yeah.
Dropped that on me, I think, probably June or something like that. And World Championships are in September every year.
Yeah.
And so I'd call the factory guys and tell them I wasn't coming. And they told them, but they, tell them all what had happened and everything. He said, well, we understand. And then my oldest brother, this 16 years older, that was all business too, he calls me up. It's emotional. Said, I was at the World Championships watching you last year. You got to go back because you're so close. I called back to the guys in Europe and told them, I said, I think I want to come anyway. And they said, well, we've just about handed out everything, all the stuff. I don't know. You come on, we'll take care of you. You come on, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
And so we went, and this is a cool part too. I didn't understand what he meant by give out all the stuff, because, I mean, this is a factory. They got buku, anything and everything. So we get over there, and we get the karts, and me and my friend, the same friend, would go over there every year. Lynn Haddock he was probably the most widely named name in karting. Me and him, the two of us, just kind of dominate a lot of stuff. Anyway, we get over there and get everything done. We go to the racetrack, and we get out there and we're practicing and qualifying and doing everything. And we were out of, like I said, over 100 drivers. We wound up for the first final for the World Championship. We're sitting on the grid. We're third. We're going to start third. And I'm on the go-kart, sitting in the cart, ready for him to push us off. And this young Italian kid comes running up there with 4 tires in his hands, wheels and tires. He said, "Put these on the cart." I looked at Lynn. Lynn looked at me and was scrambling. We understood right then there was something. When he said he'd given everything out, this kid was one of the top drivers for the factory. He had crashed out, and they brought me his tires.
Oh.
Won the first final, won the second final. It was over. I was a world champion. They run 3. It's the best 2 out of 3.
Oh.
And I won the first 2 or 3. It was over.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't give me another set of tires for the third final.
Yeah.
So they said, "We got 2 guys, other 2 factory drivers. We want them to battle it out to see which one of them is going to wind up being, second or third."
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that program went.
You didn't know it at the time, but there were over hundreds of drivers in this field, 27 countries, just a bunch of talent, right? And one of those drivers in the field was Ayrton Senna. You didn't know at the moment who he was going to be.
He wasn't one of the Italians. I wasn't concerned.
Yeah.
Those guys were the ones you had to beat.
That is forever tied to the story because of who he would become, right?
Yeah. But he's one of probably a handful that I raced against that was less than 18 months were driving Formula One cars from the time I was racing them in the World Championship.
So
that's why I said I came 40 years too early.
You're an American that went over there and did that. What was the reaction?
The fans seemed to be very pleased about it. I mean, when they have a parade, kind of walk the teams around. Each country's only allowed 6 drivers. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to the parade, it's just me and Lynn, my buddy, with the flag, walking around with the flag. Yeah, U.S. We're the only U.S. representatives. A few years of the World Championship, some other drivers from the States went over, but none of them ever, never made a main event.
Oh.
It was so
the reception was good.
Yeah, it was good.
You're 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to drag your emotions through too much today because I know you're an emotional guy.
Yeah, I am.
But being in a marriage, right? Mm-hmm. That I'm, we both have experienced that and know how, like when you make that commitment, you kind of all in, right?
It was pretty hard. That was.
I can't imagine, how you pulled yourself together, right? Because I think that no matter how great everything else in the world is going for you or anyone in that situation, when that leg gets kicked out from under the table, it's hard to your point, like you didn't want to even go over there and run.
Okay.
You didn't really have motivation to.
It's a weird deal because the 2 of us were just like this always. She did all the marketing and everything for the kart business. There, she raced some too, and
did you ever?
We had Lake Jr.
Yep.
And I had him started karting. He was getting his early start with it, and it just it was devastating. It was devastating, and I think my older brother said, you just need to go because you race, we're laser focused.
Yeah.
When it's time to go race, you set you on fire and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
And so it took over when I got there.
Yeah.
It took over, and
that was helpful.
Yeah, I think
for the
Yeah,
short, the short term.
It just made the drive that much harder. I was, on kill.
Yeah. Did you? I mean, I assume you eventually at some point come to terms with that and carry on with your life, right?
Yeah, I had to.
So you're 30 years old now. In 1978. Where is that on the? If a 30-year-old man won the World Karting Championship today, I don't know what the reaction might be. The kids, everybody getting younger and younger. I was a little older than the guys, not a lot, but a little older than all the guys over there too. I started in the Xfinity in my feels like my mid-20s, and now these guys are jumping in these cars as early as they possibly can. We got Wyatt out there racing a limited late model at Hickory at 12 years old. When you won the World Championship and left to go back home to the United States. Yeah. Where was your motivation? Because, I would imagine you've been there so many years. You've won national championships. All these, you've done it all, and you're 30 years old. Mm-hmm. So we know that you move on to stock car racing. Yeah. But when you got home, was there still some fire to compete in kart and continue to do that? I
had a business. That's what I did for a living.
Yeah.
So you got the business is still going. I just won a world championship. That's going to be really good for business. Mm-hmm. And it was really good for business. Yep. Business picked up. It was already good, and then it got better.
Yep.
But, and I got invited to I raced in New Zealand, and I've got a few other trips where the people just wanted me to come.
Yeah,
go world champion. And show up, world champion. They paid the bills and sent me there, and it was cool. It was all right. Sucked to be by myself doing it, but that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
But because I think it was the year before I won. Yeah, it was the year before I won the world championship. One of the Italian drivers had moved on, and he was in Formula One. Mm-hmm. Well, he came to the World Championships just to, he's there. It was in Italy, and that's where he's from, whatever, so it was easy for him to show up. So he comes to the racetrack. There was a guy named Elio De Angelis, and I was talking to him, and I said, Elio, what's it like driving a Formula One car? He looked at me straight as I'm looking at you and said, it's just a big go-kart. I went, damn, put that in the back of my mind. I don't really want to live in Europe. I like going over there and visiting and everything, and it was, it's different and it's nice and whatever, but I don't live there.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking, well, I've done everything I could do in karting. I just need to find something else. So I started going to some open wheel events, looking at some of the open wheel stuff, and was thinking maybe this is what I ought to do. And then I got a call from a total stranger, and he happened to be the editor of Car and Driver magazine, I think. And he tells me, he said, Lake, I understand you're thinking about doing something professional racing. He said, most all those organizations you're looking at are on life support. They might not be here next year or the year after. They're just struggling big time. He said, but there's another one that is taking off like it's going to the moon. That's NASCAR. I said, I don't know anything about going in circles, whatever. He said, if you want to do something professionally, you better look at this. You need to do it. He said, if I've got some people that would like to have you come up to Charlotte and let them show you around. I'll be waiting.
Oh, really?
You remember he had a knack for doing this.
Oh, yeah.
This was not a new thing for him.
He had an agenda.
He had an agenda. Well, the same year I won the World Championships of karts, Mario Andretti won the World Championships for Formula One, mm-hmm. and Kenny Roberts won the World Championships for motorcycle. So we had 3 world champions, the same deals. Mm-hmm. So I guess that was part of probably helped get me some attention, because karting otherwise wasn't going to have nobody's, might as well won the basket weaving world championships. So, But, so I said, he said, well, if you come up there, show you all around. I said, well, okay, I guess what the heck, ain't gonna hurt anything. So I flew up here to Charlotte, and at that time, the Charlotte airport wasn't as big as this building right here. It was a little bitty small thing, and got out, but he had a retired driver, a guy named Darrell Derringer, picked me up at the airport, and Darrell took me to Martinsville that weekend. At first took me to the Speedway, showed me around Charlotte Motor Speedway, and it was, didn't have all the office tower and all that stuff there yet, but it was a highly impressive facility. And then we drove up to Martinsville, and of course, probably just as soon as you just on the other side of Winston-Salem, you started seeing banners and all the, how it used to be. Just, you thought you were already at the track, and no, you're not at the track yet. It's a long ways yet.
Yep.
All that going on, and to get to the track and all the stuff that was happening there compared to the road racing people stuff, this was on steroids. This was out of sight, and I was impressed with all that. And walked around the pits and saw the cars, and looking at the cars some, and this, that, and the other, and didn't really know what I was looking at particularly, but talked to Ricky Rudd, because he had been a customer, and I'd raced with him one time, I think, at a road race track on the big track where we went on sports car tracks and stuff. And he hadn't been in it very long, maybe 3 years or something at that time. And he said, "Oh yeah, it kind of encouraged me a little bit, not a whole lot, but encouraged me a little bit." And so anyway, then they put me up in the press box to watch the race, and I'm sitting up there in Martinsville and was watching the guys go around the track, and I'm sitting there. And Darrell's asked me, he said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "I'm thinking it don't look like there's about a half a dozen guys down there know how to drive." And he said, "Well, what makes you think that?" "Well, there's only a few of them that are just, right on the where they ought to be, taking a good line around the corners and whatever." Darrell said, "I think you'll find out it's a lot harder than it looks." And so next thing they did, they offered me a test ride in the car. So if you remember the term bear grease.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Well, they took me to Rockingham, and I guess that was in October. It was nice and cool outside, and that's where we tested. And so they put me in the car, and first they just wanted me to jump in the car and go. I said, "Ain't no way, Jose. I don't have nothing about it. I have no clue what this thing should feel like or nothing about it." I said, "You drive it, and I'll just let me crawl in the right side over there, and I'll just hold on, and you just go out there and run some, and then I'll go."
Who's driving it?
DK.
Okay, DK Ulrich.
Yeah. So DK, he goes out there and runs around a little bit and come in. Okay, all right, I got some idea of what it's going to be like.
So you rode in the passenger side of this car, hanging on.
Just crawled in there and held on the roll bars. We ran fairly fast.
Yeah.
I mean, fast enough to.
Yeah.
If you're showing somebody something that they're going to be driving in a minute, you go around there pretty good. Look, I ain't never been scared of much of nothing. You ride a go-kart 160 miles an hour or something, and ain't nothing there but you and whatever's around you. Been upside down, turned over on them, and all this stuff too, so I wasn't scared of nothing.
Yeah.
And then, so I crawl in the car, and, I bolt this stuff on. I ain't never seen it was 5-point hard. I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't know anything about nothing.
You'd never been in a car with a harness.
No. Yeah. So I put it all on like you would a street car. I just, hooked everything up, just pulled it, hook it up and everything. So I got there and run around a little bit, and just trying to feel out on the god dang, this weirdest feeling thing, just moving all around. It's flopping. This is 3,800 pounds they weighed back then, and it's big. And this will go with Monte Carlo.
You've been sitting in the middle of a go-kart.
I'm sitting over here, and I'm saying, man, I know you're supposed to run close to the wall down here, but I mean, how far? I don't know how wide it is when you're looking. Yeah. So I mean, it was so out of my wheelhouse that I couldn't even hardly figure it out at all. So I'm running around there, and I finally get going. The first thing I did was I mashed the gas, and then it's going. But I've been driving rocket ships, a go-kart with right at 100 horsepower on it, weighs 150 pounds.
Yeah.
When you mash the pedal on it, you best be paying attention to where you're going because you're going to be there like this.
Yeah.
And this thing didn't take off at all, but it never quit taking off. It just kept on going, That was pretty good. So I made a few laps and come in, and they said, "Oh, man, you're doing awesome. You're doing great." And I said, I hadn't even been close to running hard. What are you talking about? So I went back out again and worked my way up a little bit, and I crashed.
Oh, yeah.
I crashed, tore it all to pieces. Got bruises all over my shoulders from the shoulder harness. It wasn't tight. Tight. I didn't know anything, man. I was just stupid as you could get. And so I learned a lot of stuff the hard way.
I went to Charlotte in a Busch car that Dad and his Tony Sr. and them let me drive in '96, and I wrecked on the 4th lap. And I had no idea what I was doing. Same thing. Mm-hmm. Just no clue. Don't know how far to go in the corner. Don't know what it can do.
Right.
Know what the limits of this thing is. And I just ran.
And add bear grease.
Yeah. And so I busted my ass, and I think that's it. That's the end of my career.
Mm-hmm.
That I ain't gonna get a chance to do that again. I done wrecked it. And so when this happens, what was the general emotion from you or the people around you that day? Was it like, well, that's unfortunate. We'll test somewhere else, or what was the plan?
I was shocked. I was shocked that I'd crashed, for one thing. And then I was even more shocked when Darryl and all of them said, "Wait a minute, man. You were doing really good. I mean, for somebody that's never been in one of these things at all, you were doing good." They were encouraging me. And DK said, "Yeah, man, look, there's a race coming up here in a couple of weeks. I'll prepare another car for you if you want to go try again."
Mm-hmm.
And I was out of, I don't know how long it took me to say yes, but I did.
Yeah.
And so they took me to Atlanta, and we went down to Atlanta, and sure enough, in practice, I think, if I remember right, I was about halfway up the board in practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was supposed to qualify fairly far down the list, so I wouldn't get up on the hauler to watch the guys qualify.
Yep.
And when we were parked down right inside of turn 4, and I was watching, I think Buddy Baker had been really quick or something in practice, and I watched him qualify, and he went off in the first turn, and it didn't look like he lifted out of that thing till he was almost in the middle of the corner.
Yeah.
I thought, damn, no wonder I hadn't been running faster than I am. I'm used to being on the top of the sheet wherever I am, or dang close to it anyway, And I'm sitting there saying, And see, also all the karts were the same. If you got one brand, you could take this one, that one, then they're all the same. It just drove them.
Yeah.
It was up to you, to drive it.
Yep.
And so that mentality hadn't never got into my mind yet, that these cars aren't all the same, and they don't all drive the same.
Somebody's is better.
Yes. Some of them have more grip than others do, and whatever like that. So that wasn't even in my mindset at all. Mm-hmm. I just didn't drive it hard enough. That's all this is.
Yep.
And so when I went to qualifying, I went down the first turn, that thing started spinning out before I'd ever cracked the throttle, buddy. I was still wide open. I hadn't got to the middle of the corner yet. And so didn't hit anything. Turn around this way, I was acting a real fool. Didn't hit anything. I thought, well, bad guy. I still could turn this thing back around. I could go around and still get me another lap. I'm going to have to spin it out. Next time I'll let up a little earlier. Yeah. I didn't know about inner liners and all this stuff. I'd cut the right rear tire down. It'd gone down on me. I went back out, and I come sailing off into turn 3. Lost it.
Damn it.
Crashed big time. And I think everybody in NASCAR knew me within 5 seconds. And they said, "That fool is out of his mind." because I hit the outside wall and then came down and hit the pit wall. And all those people lined up. There's still a lot of cars that were lined. I thought I was going over the wall into the lane.
Yeah.
And luckily I didn't. But that was my entrance to NASCAR. So
sounds like a tough one.
Oh, it was
so
humbling, to say the least.
So this is something that I learned too, that I thought, it would this is something that I think a lot of people might not think about. But I remember this exact sort of phenomenon not being absolutely obvious to me, even when I was young. Go to the racetrack, and you standing in the middle of the front straightaway or down in turn 4 or whatever, and you listen to a lone car on the track qualifying, and it sounded like he lifted at the middle of the corner or lifted at the 30% mark of the corner, but it just takes the sound that long to travel.
Yeah.
He's actually lifting
way
earlier. But the sound don't get to you till a few seconds later, and he's already another 200 feet down the race, further down the racetrack. Yep. And so, it's easy to get confused. It's easy for that. It sounds like something
I learned it real good that day.
But
I learned that real good that day. Darryl was the one that pointed it out to me. He said, I told him what I'd done, and he said, Blake, you're half a dang mile away from where it was. Sound, I said, well, dang, that makes all the sense in the world. No wonder.
Just that little beat of time, that little moment of time for that sound to travel to you, just that half a mile, he's another 200 foot. Yeah. And so you thinking he's lifting deeper in the corner. When I watched Dad run hundreds of races, it seems like, in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. And I didn't get that. I didn't understand that thing about that till I drove myself at a big track. And I went, oh, I better not pay attention to that, because that's giving me some bad information. Yeah. And so you ended up having a tough go at it, but you decide NASCAR's for you.
Let me back up.
Yeah.
Why'd I do this? Why'd I even come to NASCAR?
Something new. New challenge.
I was trying to find something I couldn't win. I wanted something where I wasn't supposed to win. Because I went to a kart track, I was supposed to win. And that can be a pretty heavy burden.
Yes.
To put on you. And it gets to where it makes things not so enjoyable. The kart thing had gotten, because of the business, I had so many customers coming after me at the track that I couldn't concentrate on what I was doing. I couldn't relax and enjoy myself.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to win.
It's like being Dale Earnhardt's son is what that sounds like.
Yeah. I think you probably could get a little bit of grip with it to relate to this.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to go. I need to find something that'll be hard, and because I really enjoyed the mechanical stuff of it. I enjoyed trying to come up with a better mousetrap, new tricks, all that stuff. And that's I love it. I love coming up with new ideas and trying to design stuff. So I said, I just need to find something that I'm probably can't be successful at, but I can enjoy the fight to trying to get there.
Yeah.
And when I had this experiences with the stock car, I said, this is it, because I ain't got a snowball's chance in Hades of doing any good here. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about a car. Don't know what a shock is. Don't know what a sway bar is. I don't know nothing.
Yeah.
This will be tough. And so that was the challenge.
Where did you get your first car from?
Darryl found the first car from me and bought it from a guy in Chicago. The great NASCAR state of Chicago. I'm thinking afterwards, I don't know.
What have we got?
What have we got here, And it had a 0. The number on it was 0, and it looked rough. It was pretty rough looking when we got it. and guy, John, I forget what John's last name was. He sold it to us, and he had a little box truck. I think it probably like 16-foot box truck and an open trailer, pulling it on and whatnot. And so we just had 2 or 3 guys there, and we rented a little spot there, one of those outbuildings from Australian.
You know that feeling you get when you're watching drivers fight it out on the racetrack, giving it everything they've got for the checkered flag? Well, you can capture that feeling forever with cars from Lionel Racing, the official diecast of NASCAR. The ultimate way to celebrate the biggest moments in racing. These diecasts aren't toys, they're authentic, high-quality replicas of your favorite rides from the sport's biggest stars, including myself and the guys on my race team. Whether you're a longtime collector or a fan who's new to the sport, Lionel Racing diecasts bring the heart of racing to your shelf or man cave with incredible detail. They're built with precision, with all the exact decals, logos, and paint schemes you've seen on the actual cars. And trust me, these cars make you feel like you're right there in the middle of it. So head to LionelRacing.com, your favorite racing team shop, or any authorized retailer, and start building your collection today. And don't forget, you can find a wide selection of diecasts at the Lionel stores in Concord Mills near Charlotte Motor Speedway and Opry Mills in Nashville. When you were over at Osterland's, we were working kind of next door to them. I remember seeing your car there, and
we wound up buying a car from Osterland later.
Okay.
I think it was that later. Yeah, it would have been that later that year. Sometime along there, one of them had a car there your dad didn't like or something. And
that's not the first
gave it to me.
Interaction that you would have with Dad. You and him, there's a picture of you and him standing in Victory Lane at Charlotte. Y'all had won some buck stove challenge or some sort of challenge. Yeah. Where I don't know if
veteran
you were
and
top rookie
and some rookie.
Yeah. And so Dad won the race, and you were the top. You ran 7th or 6th or something in the race, and got best finishing rookie. And y'all both your teams are in Victory Lane together. Right. But what do you remember about that time frame? Kind of being around, connected somewhat to. I don't know if it was, you was.
They were giving us some help. There's some of the guys who were over there, give us pointers on this, that, and the other, and that was before we bought the car. And once we bought the car, then they really were helping us even more. Give us more information, what to do to it. Whatever you do, don't you hurt that nose of that car. It's got a lot of hours in it. But and we were running better too. We just got to running better. We just didn't have much any sponsorship to amount to anything, and my funding was running low. I'd sold my cart business to fund all this stuff.
Really?
I just liquidated the cart business, and
that
was it. I put it all on the table.
Had you moved down to North Carolina full time?
No, I was still living in Jackson and just commuting. I did that until it was New Year's Eve of 84, 85 before we moved up here full time.
You end up getting some sort of a radio call during the race at Ontario in 1980. Yeah. Explain that to me. This is a story I hadn't heard.
Yeah, I don't really remember the details of it. I just remember we had messed around and I don't know what happened. We got a lap down somehow or another. I remember this is one of those highlights in your career stuff. I passed 3 cars. Cale Yarber, and I think it was Neil Bonnet and somebody else, all coming off I remember that track layout. Would have been coming off the 4th turn. Passed all 3 of them in one shot. My car was hooked up and I was going. But we'd gotten a lap down. And every time when we come around for a restart, whatever, them guys would run in the side of me or doing anything to try to get me out of the way and not let me start back up there with them.
Yep.
So the car was really good. And I get this thing on the radio. They said, Dale needs you to help him. And I can't remember if I was running in front of him and slowing down to let him draft with me, or if I was running behind him, helping
push him,
more or less. But anyway, that was at the end of the race. It was, last several laps or something like that. And,
I believe,
and that's
I mean, I'd never heard this story, but I would imagine that it would be connected. So Ontario, 1980, Dad's trying to win the championship, and they had a bad pit stop and had to come back down pit road to replace a lug nut. And so they had lost the lead draft, and they were really hanging on by like 1 or 2 spots to the championship. And I imagine that you were likely called on, being that you were in the proximity of Dad somewhere near him.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, hey, we need him. He needs somebody to draft with. You got to help him out.
Right.
Pretty unique deal. I'd never heard that, but absolutely believe it's possible that it happened. And
I don't make up stuff.
no, hell no. Bridge the
I got
gap.
enough real stuff. I don't need to make up anything.
Bridge the gap between your driving your own car to getting a call to come drive for Raymok. You talked about your funds running out. You talked about how how tight the budget was.
Yeah, there was a lot between those two.
Right.
There was
talk
a lot
about
of stuff
it. Yeah,
between
let me know.
them. Roger Hamby saved me because after that year, at the end of that was 80.
Yeah.
81, we changed over to the small car, worked through all the details on that, ran a few races, and then I'd spent it all. I was toast. And so I had to close the shop, let everybody go, took what little bit of stuff we had, put it on a truck. One of my fans had a trucking company, and he put the stuff on the truck and sent it back to my brother. My middle brother had a motorcycle dealership. He had a big shop there, big storage area.
Yeah.
Put all the stuff down there, and that was it. I was over,
Yeah.
I thought, well, I tried, did the best I could do. It's over. Well, then Roger calls me over the winter and says, how would you like to drive my car? I'd like for you to drive the car if you would. He said, I don't have a budget. I'm there just to go have a good time, and I just love racing, and, that's it. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. I'll be glad to. I just get me some more seat time, more exposure, get out there and go. And he did have one carrot he hung in on there. He said, I do a lot of work for Junior Johnson. And he said, basically, I'll run out of his trash pile. The stuff that he's ready to throw away. He don't want anybody else to get it, but he'll let me have it.
Yeah.
Because he knows it won't go anywhere. So that year with Roger, and there's 2 guys there, and I can't remember one of them's name, Donnie Disharoon. Have you ever heard of Donnie? Mm-hmm. Him and another kid were high school. They were in high school. They were building the motors, and they were doing the cars. Mm. And then he had a few other weekend guys that would come in and help on the weekend and stuff, but that was it. We'd go to the racetrack, and because of what the parts were, the thing could run pretty dang fast.
Yeah. From
time to time. We'd never had never put new tires on. We never had a new tire on the car ever, the whole year. It was always somebody else's cast-off stuff. Mm-hmm. But we ran really good every now and then. Then it'd usually break or blow up or something would break or fall off of it or something like that. So it got me enough exposure. I think there was people saying, wait a minute, Roger's car ain't supposed to be running. He's supposed to be running that good. And so that opened the door for me to go to Hollis Ellington's shop.
Oh, yeah. Remember that?
That's when the real magic happened. That's when the real magic happened. Shelton Pittman, they call him Run, is one of the smartest guys ever walked through that garage. I'm going to tell you that right now. And he took a liking to me, and we had some magic going on. Hoss he just wanted to play and have a good time and whatever, so he wasn't super serious. We probably could have won a few more races if he'd have been cooperative. He'd been as serious then as he was later.
Yeah.
When some of the other guys came along a little bit later and they had more money to he wasn't having to do it paying out of his pocket. But Shelton believed in me and gave me some fast cars. And when the thing happened at Talladega, it wasn't a surprise. Again, you have memories that are special ones. And we were at Talladega. I don't know if it was that race or one of the other races at Talladega. I remember Leonard Wood, they were pitting right beside us and everything. We'd been practicing, and he said, "Dang, you guys don't hardly ever, you run, you just once in a while." But he said, "Maybe we ought to quit going to all these races and just stay home and work on our stuff a little bit more before we get to it, because y'all are kicking our behinds every time y'all come to the racetrack."
Yeah.
And so it was that kind of stuff. You know, and then that day, I think it would have been it was the spring race or the fall race. But I find myself leading the race, and we'd been leading it a lot. And I'm just unreal. Just a few laps left in the race, and going down the back straightaway, and Richard was behind me, and Benny was behind me, and we had checked out on the field. And this little voice spoke to me and said, "Lake, what you gonna do if you win here too?" Somebody wrecked, had pits top. Everybody went in to get some tires for the last lap dash there or whatever. And I'm going down pit lane, and they said, stay out. I can't stay out, I'm already on pit lane. Said, Hoss didn't buy any more tires. We ain't got no tires for you.
Oh.
So anyway, I think I finished third. But I couldn't get away from that, hearing that voice. And I started crying out to God. I said, what's this all about? I don't understand. I don't have a clue what this life's all about.
Yeah.
And he said to me back again, you need to pick up that book. It's been around since thousands of years. It's the instruction book for life. You'll find the answer. And I went home that night and took that book out and started reading. And been reading it ever since.
Damn.
And
right after that race is kind of the moment
that was it.
You made that decision.
Well, I didn't make the decision right then.
Yeah.
But I just knew I needed to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life and what this is all about. And it wasn't very long after that me and my girlfriend at the time now, we got invited to go to her church, a friend of hers church. She was a nurse, and it was her person was in charge. Mm. Invited her, said, come over to our church. Well, this Sunday, well, boss asked you to come to the church. You need to go to church. So
yeah.
We'll go to church. So we went to their church, and I went in there, and it was different than any church I'd ever been in. It wasn't. I was used to going to the biggest church in the state. It's quiet and reverent, and you hear a pin drop. Just all that kind of stuff. And this place, it looked like there was a concert going on. It had drums on the stage and electric guitars, and everybody was talking, and it was happening. People, you could tell they were glad to be there. It wasn't anything. And the pastor got up, and he didn't preach like normal preaching that I was used to. He was teaching the Bible. He was just line by line. He was teaching, what it's all about. Like as good or better than any professor in college I ever sat under. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the service, typical for most evangelical churches, every head bowed and every eye closed. Anybody in here would like to ask Jesus to be the Lord of their life, they'd come down front, and we'll lay hands on you and pray for you to receive Christ. A voice came back to me and said, you've been reading about a church like this, haven't you? I said, Lake, you've been driving your own little red wagon. Look at it. Looks kind of beat up, bent up, scarred up. You'd run it off in the ditch quite a few times. Why don't you let me drive a while? up off the pew I came.
Yeah.
And as I was coming off of it, another old loud voice that I was used to hearing a lot said, if you go down front, dude, you'll never race again. He'll send you off somewhere to be a missionary or something. I said, I don't care. I'm done. Down front I went. And I asked Christ to be the Lord of my life, and everything changed. Foul mouth went away. Alcohol went away. I was a new person. Came back to the racetrack thinking, man, I got God on my side now. Next race was one of the Darlington races. I went sailing off what used to be the third turn back there. You know, you're challenging yourself all the time, how deep you can run there. I said, I think I'm going to be, I'll probably be able to run this thing wide open now. You know? And just about wrecked. Said, the voice came back to me and said, Lake, you're not the only one we got out here.
Yeah.
Reality here, you know. No. And so that was really the beginning of a life change for me, you know.
My experience of following you and just, you know, experiencing your involvement in the sport, you've always spoke openly about your faith and how big of an impact that's had on you.
Yeah.
Do you think that is it any coincidence that, you know, you would then kind of find yourself in a really good situation at Raymok shortly after that decision? You would go have a really great year, a big moment in Daytona that we all, you know, look back on fondly. You would then be able to build your own race team into a competitive race team, end up winning, driving your own car out of your own shop. You're winning at arguably the toughest racetrack and the toughest race to win. You sort of, do you feel like that decision allowed you to find a way to get all the other components necessary in life to be successful in this?
Absolutely. God had a plan. It's not, doing things God's way is not always easy. It's probably better said, never easy. From the time I've made that decision, I was driving for Halcyon, and then the situation with Raymok came up, and a couple other offers came up.
What were they?
I'd rather not talk about them.
Oh.
There's other people involved. There's other people out there. I know. No. Anyway, so we prayed hard as to what we should do, where we should go, and decided that we felt like God told us to go to Butch and Bob's. So we went there, and Hoss and them, you know, were probably disappointed. I feel sure they were disappointed because we were doing really well and had a lot going on for us. Anyway, felt like the Lord told us to go there, and went there with them having no sponsor.
Yeah.
Nothing but I went there on God's direction, and immediately started dialing for dollars. You know how that is.
Yeah.
Dialing for dollars, nothing happening. And one day, as we getting really close to go to Daytona, I was sitting at the desk at Butch's, and I went to pick up the telephone to call somebody. And a voice came back to me and said, "You going to trust me with this or not?" I put the phone back up. And we went to Daytona with a car with nothing written on the side. Saturday, during Saturday's race, I was up in the Goodyear Tower watching right before we're going to have last practice. You know, I got your uniform on, all that stuff. I'm up there and watching around. This guy comes over to me, bumps into me, and says, "This is the first time I've ever been down here. can you tell me what's going on? And I explained to him what was happening, and he was asking more questions, and I was answering his question to him. He's a nice guy. And after the race was fixing to be over here in a minute, I told him, I got to go. I'm going to be practicing here in a minute. And he said, before you leave, he said, I came down here, and there's a big team was supposed to be meeting with me. We were going to put a sponsorship deal together. It wasn't going to be a big one, but a sponsorship deal with them. And he said, I got down here, and they won't even talk to me. You got any ideas, anything I could do, someplace I could put some sponsorship, put my name on it? I got a whole ton of people, guests that are here. And it was a Nationwide Auto Park guy. And I told him, I said, well, actually, we've got a white car down here, has nothing on it. And I'm sure that the owners would love to talk to you about anything, doing whatever. And so they got together that night and had dinner. And Butcher Bob, instead of a little small decal put on there, they wrote Nationwide all over the whole car. Like it was a big time, full deal. And I remember when I came to the track, you normally go to your garage stall, see your car, and see what's going on. Whatever. I got there, and the car wasn't there. I thought, well, maybe it had gone through tech. And I went over to the tech area, and it wasn't there either. I'm saying, where's the car? And somebody told me, said, oh, it's right around the corner over there. Sign painter's still painting. We started that race with wet paint on it. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Went out there and had a heck of a race. The only car on the lead lap with Bill. When it was all over with, we won our class. And
this was when Bill ran,
all that crazy.
10 mile an hour faster than everybody else. They had it going on. The Elliots did.
I don't know if any of us ever heard yet, figured out what it was. I have some sneaking ideas of what it was. But,
right. They wasn't anybody going to be able to run with him, but y'all really could. Your car would hang in there a little bit.
Neil's was real good too. Neil was pretty close. He found something happened to him there.
He blew up on the front straightaway, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
But that was
a big deal. Let me tell you what the part that was why I was so dang emotional. This is really important, I think. So we come off the racetrack, and you go to the gas pumps, and as soon as I pulled out of the line so the next, third place car could get in, the guy from Nationwide runs up to the car. Now, how he got there, I don't know if he was in the grandstand. I don't know how he got there, but he comes running up to the car, and he's hollering at me in there and said, I don't care what we have to do. We're not taking our name off this car. He said, I'm going to get the money to sponsor y'all for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And so then you get out of the car, and, the camera people and all the stuff is at the winner's circle, right?
Yeah.
I look up, and here they come. The whole shooting match.
Yeah.
And I think it was Mike Joy. He sticks a microphone in front of my face and says, what does this mean to you? And a voice came back and said, I told you I was going to take care of this. I exploded.
Yeah.
Just thanking God for, what he had done. Just freaking miracle.
Yeah, it was.
And that was just a beginning.
Yeah.
There's a bunch more miracles that he did after that to let the rest of the other stuff happen. I don't know how long your show can go. But I could tell you some more that will flip you right out.
Hey, everybody, you want the latest Dale Jr. download apparel? Visit shop.dirtymomedia.com. We're always adding new stuff all the time, especially like when we say something silly on this show. We'll put it on a t-shirt. Again, check it out at shop.dirtymomedia.com. I want you to take me to Darlington in 1988. If you watch you in, 86, 87, and 88, you'll understand that you were building something. You were building a team to your standard, right? You had this kind of, knowing now, right, that with the story we've heard about how you developed such a successful operation and business in karts, I can totally see how you applied the same sort of business mind to how you ran your own operation. And by 1988, your car was very competitive. This team that you had built on your own, and you had a very intentional way of going about your engine program and everything, and you did it all smartly with a budget a little bit tighter than a lot of other people's. But you could go out there and compete. And so here you are in Darlington one afternoon with one of the best race cars in the field, led a lot of laps, and put yourself in a great position late in the race to have a commanding lead. I guess, walk me through what those emotions must have been like as you're closing in on the finish of this race, because, man, winning in your own car is one thing, but doing it at Darlington and a track where every driver in the field knows that that's where drivers shine. That's where real drivers shine. Yeah. You kind of conquered a huge mountain that day. And I just kind of wondered, I was there. I was watching, watching you run the last handful of laps coming through turn 3 and 4 and thinking, man, he's going to win. He's going to win today. It's his first win. Yeah. What were your emotions closing in on the finish of that race?
I had almost won several races that year already. And my emotions were, don't let anything else happen. We had the whole field a lap down in Richmond and figured out a way not to win the race. And Rockingham, we were really fast at Rockingham. Didn't win that one.
Yeah.
Started out at Daytona. At Daytona, we were leading the race. And the harmonic, where the end of the crankshaft, where the harmonic balancer goes on, it broke off. The car was so fast that Bobby and Davey drafting together couldn't pass me. That was the first one. So when it came to Darlington, and dominated the whole race, and then just sitting there said, please don't let something happen again. Please don't let something happen again. And when it didn't, I was quite relieved. It was, people asked, what did you feel like? I said, it was the biggest relief. I just like, dang, finally, finally, something didn't happen, because so many things had happened before when I thought I was going to win the race and didn't. So I kind of gotten used to being shot down at the end, and when it didn't happen, it was very rewarding, for say the least. And like I said, one of the things you said, the driver does not make this happen. You don't have the car under you and the support behind you, it ain't gonna happen. I don't give your dad, or there ain't no human being can make one of these cars stick to the racetrack more than it's sticking to it, or to make it run down the straightaway any faster than it's running. Everybody's got the foot wide open. There ain't nobody out there running part throttle.
Yep.
So I give the guys credit for helping me to get good cars. I got a list of people here that I wanted to
go for it.
to shine. Some people that I gave the first jobs to. Mm-hmm. In NASCAR, that Michael McSwain, Troy Selberg, Tony Gibson, Drew Bleckendorfer. When I was helping Bobby Hillen with his Busch car, Drew was the PR guy and office manager.
Damn.
John Callis, who did my engines for us there in the last years when we was so fast out there at Charlotte. And Robert tried to hire him that night for me. And Randy Clary probably did motors for you. Tony Gibson. I give most all these guys their first jobs in NASCAR. I don't remember, you might not ever even known, Gary and Walter Smith were the first ones that were doing pit crew coaching and getting everybody healthy and working all that stuff. Yep. They were my pit crews They were pitting my car at Darlington.
Oh, all right.
It takes a whole team.
Oh, yeah.
It's not an individual. The guy that's managing it's trying to make things happen.
Yep.
But I was blessed to have a bunch of people work for me that were hard workers. And
I think that is the one thing that I've learned about you that I didn't realize is how for your team to be successful, you had to make the right choice.
Had to be 100% all the time. You
had to, not only in parts and pieces, but the people that you put in all those places had to be, had to overachieve or, had to be great.
Yeah.
And you had to see greatness in them and the potential in them, right? You couldn't have this one guy over here just not quite measuring up, because the whole your operation banked on every little pillar being strong.
Yeah. I can't not tell you this.
Sure.
When Raymok let me go, like second race or third race of the season, I thought it was over for sure. I mean, what am I going to do? There's no seats coming available, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at the house trying to make a flower bed on the front porch, around the front porch. We'd bought this old farmhouse. And God spoke to me again. He said, Lake, nobody's going to hire you. They ain't going to hire you. You're going to have to do your own team. And I laughed. Lord, I owe money on this place here. I had to borrow money to buy this land. He said, you just do today what you can do. Let me take care of the rest. I had an old bulldozer that I'd gotten to clear pastures for the horses. And I said, well, Junior Johnson's the most successful guy in racing right now, and his shop's about maybe 50 yards, 75 yards behind his house. I said, I got a place right back there about 7,500 yards from the house. I clear some trees off and get a pad. I started building a pad for a building to go on. Didn't have no money, no nothing. But I started doing what he told me to do. I got a check in the mail for exactly how much money it cost to build that building and put all the equipment in it. My father had invested in something for me as a kid, as a child.
Damn.
I'd never gotten a penny out of it, ever. They decided to liquidate it, and the check covered exactly putting it all together. People started coming up the driveway when they heard that I was going to start my own team, volunteering to come work with no money. Actually, they started doing that before the check showed up. And we put that thing together and had the first car at Talladega testing in December, I think it was. Wound up buying most of the stuff from Cliff Stewart when he shut down. Mm-hmm. We went to auction up there and bought most of the stuff there, and that's where I think this one got connected with Darryl and Jay and a few of the other key people that hadn't already gone and find them another job. A lot of his crew had, when it's something shutting down, they'd bail out and go get somewhere else. But then people just started coming up. I didn't have to ever solicit anybody.
Yeah.
And so God made all that happen.
Man, that's a heck of a story.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And there's lots more.
We got to get you back.
Yeah.
There's a couple things I need to ask you before we turn you loose. Mm-hmm. What did it feel like to get the call to fill in for Davey? When we lost Davey, you got a call from Robert Yates, one of the best cars in the garage.
We were trying to race, and had a Chevrolet, and I couldn't even buy the raw castings for the cylinder heads, the latest and greatest stuff. And John Callis was doing the engines for me, and John came in and said, Lake, they won't even sell us the castings. He said, but there's another company that'll weld them up and do them all with, but they want $10,000 for a set of heads. He said, I'm talking to Kowicki's guys up the street here. Kowicki's shop was just up the road down there from me. He said those guys are bolting on, take Yates heads out of the box and bolt them on and make 700 horsepower. It only cost $2,500 for the heads. He said, we need to change to Ford. I said, yeah, based on that, I mean, we don't go to the racetrack just to ride around and just to be there. We're trying to do something. You know? And so I said, okay, I'll call Robert. I said, Robert, any chance I could buy a used engine from you? He said, oh, yeah, we'll fix you up. I said, he got something, we'll fix it up. So anyways, he sells me a used engine. I'll make this quicker. He's selling me a used motor. We'd take it and run it. Runs it, okay, it wasn't really very good. Well, John had a background, and Callis had been building Fords for a long time before he ever started with the Chevrolet stuff. He said, Lake, how about let me work on this thing? So he took it apart and did some work on it. And I think Charlotte race was coming up next race we went to. We went out there and we practiced. We had the fastest car. No doubt about it. We had the fastest car. One of the writers for the newspaper said, there's a sleeper out there. Nobody's been paying attention to him, but he's bad fast. And so after practice, Robert and Doug come walking down to the shower and said, that ain't the motor that we sold you, is it? I said, yeah, it is. He said, that ain't supposed to be running that fast. You know, John's done a little work on it. And, you know, we wound up going out there, and I don't know if you remember anything about that race, but when the 600 started, I qualified 15th, I think it was, 15th, 16th, something like that. I was one of the early ones out, and it was hot, you know, track hot. Anyway, I went from 15th to 2nd, the first stop. Mm-hmm. They dropped the jack, and I dropped the clutch, and it snapped off the whatever you call that thing on the front of the gear.
The pinion, yeah.
Pinion deal. We pushed the car back in there, and
you're done.
They put another gear in it. Mm-hmm. They don't have one of the right gears.
Sure.
Put another gear in there. Went back out on the racetrack. When I come back out on the racetrack, your dad, Davey, were on the front row coming around, and I just pulled off pit road as they were catching the green flag. So we're running, and the guy said, on the radio said Dick Beatty just said that Davey had told him, said, y'all be sure to get Lake out of the way when we catch him. And said, Beatty told him, said, you catch him, I'll get him out of the way. Mm-hmm. And they never caught me. I was gone. I was done. 25 laps down or whatever it was. I don't remember what after that.
I remember that race.
But that car was so freaking fast.
So fast.
Every practice session, everything. Well, it wasn't just a couple of weeks later, we were at Talladega. And David just had his accident or whatever. And I'm sitting on the pit wall getting ready to go out and qualify. And Robert walks up to me and says, Lake, any chance I can get you to drive this car next week? They're working on something with another driver trying to get him out of his contract, whatever, but it may happen, may never happen. I don't know. He said, but anyway, can you do that? And I said, well, it just so happens this is the last race that we have sponsorship for. We're shutting down after this race. Mm-hmm. And yes, I'm available. Then he called me Monday. Called me Monday. He said, we've changed our mind. He said, we want to put a road race ringer in the car instead of you. And he said, you can run the car after the next week. I said, Robert, you don't understand that I am a world champion road racer. That's all I've ever done in my life before I came into this thing. He said, let me call you back in a minute. So he calls back a few minutes later and said, okay, yeah, we're going to give you a shot at it. yeah, we'll give you a shot at it.
Yeah.
And so we went up there, and it was some funny stuff that happened in my life. But I went out. He said, there's a lot of practice, a lot of pressure on you and everything here. You just be calm. Don't overdo anything. Don't try to impress anybody. Just go out there and run. Said, since you drove up here before, they got this bus stop thing back there in the back. Now you have to slow up for that thing. But if you miss it, you can just stop and then go again. Be all right. So I went out and ran practice and come in. He comes running up there, pulled the net down, and said, did you go through the bus stop or did you go straight through there? I said, I went through the bus stop. He said, well, you're right up here close to the top of the sheet. I said, Robert, I didn't run hard. I promise you I didn't run hard. And then went out and qualified fourth. And he was over the static, said, we'd never qualified in top 10 before ever at a road racetrack. I said, Robert, I'm still not running hard. I'm still taking it easy. I'm trying to be careful, just understand what the circumstances are. The race started. I'm running second, and I'm running the leader down the transmission brakes. So that was the beginning of it. And then the next weekend, we went to Michigan and qualified outside pole. And I don't remember what happened in that race.
Yeah.
But something happened. But then the next weekend was Bristol, and we'd practice. I guess we went and tested at Indy and then tested at Darlington right before Ernie got out of his contract, before I could get to Darlington.
Yeah.
You
were looking forward to that one.
Oh, buddy, was I ever. Was I ever.
Yeah.
Darlington, I don't know if it's my road racing experience or what, but something about Darlington. I finished 8th, I think, as a rookie the first time I ever went there. And then the next race, I think, was 7th. That rookie year when I didn't know Adams House. I didn't know nothing about the cars or nothing else, but I just loved that place.
Yeah.
It was always good to me. And there was a bunch of other near misses wins that were at Darlington. So I always felt like God gave me a bone. If I was going to win, that'd be my choice of where I'd want to win.
Yeah.
If you only got one,
that's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah. It's one that the drivers all appreciate.
Yeah.
One thing I'm going to ask you about that I can't release this podcast without asking you about this, but one memorable moment when you're driving for Melling in the 9 car, the Spam car.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Waltrip got upset with you at Michigan. What the hell happened on the racetrack that had him so hot?
I think the truth of the matter is I think it's something that happened at another race before that. One time at Pocono, he thought I wrecked him on purpose, and your dad did this one time too. You're running in the corner, and you're driving by somebody, and you think you've cleared them, but you hadn't, and you turn down, you wrecked yourself. I didn't wreck you.
Yeah.
And that's what happened, I think, with Michael, and he just never believed I didn't wreck him.
Yeah.
And so that particular day, we had been running pretty darn good up front. I think maybe we had a bad pit stop or something, and I'm coming back up through the pack just late in the race. I mean, just a few laps left.
Yeah.
And he was trying to block me and keep me from passing him, and I didn't have much time to wait, so I did a slide job on him, but I didn't go by him to slide. I slid, kind of pushed him up the track a little bit and went on. And
he was hot about that. Did y'all ever talk about that?
Oh, yeah.
That immediately, like the next week?
No.
Down the road?
I'm 5'5", and he's what?
Yeah, he's a big tall one.
6'7" or whatever it is, So I think the wives actually worked it out. Worked it out first, kind of helped.
That makes it a little easier.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
it's a real good thing. But I'll tell you something else. Another one of this.
Yeah.
When he did that, when he walked away from the car and everything, that old voice that used to control me a lot told me to run over him.
Oh, no.
He said, run over him.
Yeah.
And Holy Spirit said, don't you ever think about it.
Yeah.
Don't you ever think about it.
You finished up your NASCAR career, but that wasn't the end of your driving career. You got back into karting.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a while. So you ran your last cup race right before the 2000 season, so like 98, 99. Mm-hmm. 5 years later, you get into karting.
You remember Steve Peterson?
Yes.
Steve, I didn't know this until this all
The
happened.
NASCAR official, right?
Yeah. And Steve had been a go-karter back in his teenage years, in early 20s, I guess, before he ever got involved with the stock car stuff. And so Steve still fools around with the karts. Ricky Rudd still had a kart. He was carrying a kart with him to Sonoma and other places after the race is over. He was playing with go-karts and stuff. So find out there's several people had karts, and they were going out to Charlotte Motor Speedway on Wednesday afternoons, running on the road course track out there, the kart track. And so Steve started calling me and asked me to come out there, and I turned him down the first few times, and he finally caught me a week one day, and I said, all right, well, I'll come out there and run. I said, maybe do that. So I went out there and drove his kart, and I said, God dang, I forgot how much fun these things are, And I said, can I come back next Wednesday, and the next Wednesday. Then I started feeling bad about it. I said, well, Steve, I'm going to wear your stuff out. Plus that, I want to work on them. I've built these things, I'm going to do all my own stuff. And so I'm going to get my own kart. So I called the guys back in Italy.
Really?
I called the guys back in Italy and said, can I get a deal? I'm always hunting a deal. I said, can I get me a deal on a motor and a kart? And the guy said, yeah, I'll get you a deal. I'll send you one for nothing. And
damn,
shipped me a kart. And so I started running. I went back out there a bunch more and run. And
where were you racing?
I'm just saying, I was just going out there
to Charlotte.
Just Charlotte, going out there on Wednesdays and doing that. Also, there was no go-kart tracks around here.
No.
There's no sprint tracks nowhere. I mean, you had to go, the closest one probably in Georgia or someplace. And so I'm having a good time with that, but I want to race. I want to race again. And so I found out there's no sprint racing anywhere in the Southeast right now, but there is road racing. They do it on big sports car tracks. Yeah. And there's a bunch of them around here. And they were racing them all the time. And I said, okay, well, let me go to one of those and see what they do. And they do a few little things trickier on them than they do on the sprint tracks, different stuff for it. So I went there and looked and said, okay, I'll take my kart and I'll convert it and make a road race kart out of it. And so I did that for a couple of years there, I guess maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And won a national championship again.
Yeah. So in 2008, you won the WK national championship in that in the particular class you were in.
Right.
You also got into the Historic Stock Car Racing Association.
Yeah, that was a little bit after the kart thing. We had a big economy thing or something in the kart deal. All of a sudden, instead of having 30 karts in the class, there was 5 or 6, 10 are showing up. And I said, this ain't no fun. Even going racing, nobody to race. Yeah. This is no good. So one of the guys that's on the board of directors from Motor Racing Outreach lived in Phoenix, and he had gotten, I guess on the West Coast, that vintage stock car thing had come to life and was pretty active. He had bought 2 cars. He had one of Davey's cars, and he had one of Rusty Wallace's cars. Mm-hmm. And he would say, well, come out here and we have a race here at Phoenix. Come out and drive one of my cars. And I said, what kind of cars you got anyway? And I'm thinking, not so good. I don't know if I can do that. He said, no. I said, I sent my cars down to Elliott, Ernie, and those guys. They've gone through it, and he's done the motors and the cars and everything. I thought, oh, yeah, that sounds, I'll be there. So I flew out there and went out to Phoenix. They had a road course that was in the inside of the track there, too. They used part of the oval and that. So went out and ran. First practice, I went out and I came back in. I'm crying, man. I'm crying. It's the first time I'd been in a car since 98. And I said, my Lord, this is amazing. And I thought, I've got 3 cars sitting in the shop at the house.
Your own.
That are all covered up, just got dust on them. Ron, thank you so very much, but I will see you at Daytona with my own car. You know?
Yep.
And so we went back, and I went hard on taking one of my cars and converting it into a road race car, and went down to Daytona and had a blast.
Yep. So you raced in go-karts up to 70 years old. The amount of time and the amount of laps that you got under your belt, the experiences that you've had, the personal transition that you had, I would say that you have to be quite content, pretty satisfied.
I hate the ones that got away.
Of course, we all have them.
I believe that God gave me how much I could handle.
Mm-hmm.
I probably couldn't have handled it. I might not be the same person I am today
Yeah.
if I'd have had more success than I had.
Yeah. Where are you personally, though? Because I've seen, social media content, some things you've done here recently where you do have some mementos, your jacket from your go-karting days and the trophies and things like that, but you're finally having to part ways with those old cup cars that you've had under a cover for all those years that you ran and fooled with. And these are things that, even though it's probably time, there's a time. So that's something I think I want to learn from you, is like, I hang on to a lot of stuff too.
Yeah.
I got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And I know that I got more stuff than I probably need to be hanging on to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The pieces and parts, the body panels, the cars, the trophies, the collectibles, and all of these things that I think, man, that matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is a time that I am aware enough to know that there is a day where, or a point in my life where I'm going to go, oh, this ain't nothing, and it don't matter. Someone else can have this, value this. I don't need to leave this burden to my girls. They are not going to understand the value. It's not going to have the same value that it has to me, right?
We're close,
right? And so, how are you in that transition period?
That's where I am.
Yeah.
That's where I am right now. It's just started in the last year.
That's got to be a bit emotional to have that realization of, man, I hung on to all this and it mattered to me. And you can see how proud of all that stuff you are and how y'all were able to do what you did.
We did a whole lot with a little.
Yeah.
Just God blessed us to be able to do what we did. I always felt like I was a big team's worst nightmare, because on Monday morning they're having to explain how come nobody run faster than you did.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But now you're in the point, you're in this kind of a tough spot where you're having to.
Well, this is where I am. You probably saw the picture of the big display place. That's in my office, and that's going to stay there forever.
Yep.
But that's all I need. I don't need any more than that.
Yeah.
I've got stuff back there that somebody else could be enjoying. I got a car that one we took to
VR,
yep. And my son and the guys at Pro Motor went through the engine. I don't know if you know all about the whole deal there, development, seeing what the difference is and everything. Yep. This awesome piece. There won a bunch of races with that thing in the vintage thing.
Yep.
Somebody else needs to enjoy that thing. When I went up there and ran it, I'm going to tell you what, that thing went down the straightaway faster than I'd ever been down the straightaway over there. Now, I'd won several races up there in the past. But the idea of being 77 years old and crashing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Not because I did something stupid, but
I don't
know how many times you were testing and something broke.
Oh, yeah.
I had lost brakes a couple of times. Things broke and crashed big time. We had a brand new car that was everything supposed to be perfect on it. So I just.
That part's understandable, but
my wife is not happy at all that I'm
out there
going out there risking this. She's on just whatever. So anyway, I just decided that there's somebody else needs to own this stuff that can enjoy it and put it to use, and not just sit here and have it just deteriorate into nothing.
Right.
And
that's probably worse than
so
seeing it go out the door and down the road.
Yeah. And for me, before I had the auction that we sold almost everything but the cars.
Mm-hmm.
every time I'd walk out there in that shop, Dale, it was like I'd get sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just gut-wrenching. Think how much energy and effort you put in to putting this all together and making it happen for it just to sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
And that just drove me nuts.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so I got rid of that, 90% of it went to auction. And the cars, we had some of the best cars on the racetrack that was sitting in my shop. And they were going for almost nothing. And I got sick then. I said, I'll let them rust before I give them away.
Yeah.
I just bowed up. I should have let them go, but I didn't. At that time, when we were right before, when we closed up in '83 and went to do the deal with Yates, we'd already built, I think, 1 or 2 cars for Ricky. That was when Rudd was just starting his shop. He bought cars from us. We built cars for him.
Yeah.
And so most of the guys that were on my team went to work for Ricky, sort of thereafter. We had really nice cars. I'm talking lightweight, some guns that had aero. Norman Agree was doing body stuff for us, and we had some good pieces there. It just made me sick. So anyway, but
what's there now?
I've got one of them sold.
Finally,
one of them sold. Guy in California is supposed to be coming picking it up pretty soon. The other 2 are still sitting there.
Yeah.
You know, fresh motors, fresh everything.
Hey, they'll sell.
Somebody. I hope somebody will go have some fun with it. You know,
somebody will one day.
Yeah, hope so.
They ain't depreciating in value, that's for sure.
I don't know.
No, that stuff's historic, man. I think the further removed we get from it, the more difficult it is to find those cars in decent shape.
Well, some of them want them for nothing, though.
Yeah,
People that have called me want them for nothing.
Well, the right person will call. I've enjoyed sitting here talking to you.
Oh, yeah. We could talk forever about this stuff.
Listen, this is the great thing about this show for me. I grew up watching you race.
Yeah.
But due to my youth and where you were in your life and where I was as a young man or a child, you know, we didn't communicate. Right. And you were one of my dad's peers. Yeah. But I get to bring guys like you in here and sit down and have a real conversation. It is a blessing. I am thankful.
Yeah. Before we finish, this right here,
Motor Racing Outreach.
That may be the reason it all happened. Everything we've talked about.
Yeah.
In my heart, I feel like God knows the future. He knows the future, what's going to happen. I think he led me through this journey to get a hold of me at Talladega, turn my life around, to start this organization. So shortly after I made my profession of faith, I come to the realization that I can't go to church on Sunday anymore. It's not going to be one. And then as I'm reading the Bible, I'm realizing the church is not a building. The church is the people. I said, we've got people in that garage area that are Christ followers. And we've got a whole bunch of them in there that need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got with some of the drivers and wives that I knew were Christ followers, and we started praying for God to send us a pastor. Because we don't have to have a building.
Yeah.
We can have a church right here in this garage area. And shortly thereafter, Max Helton shows up from California with a wife and 5 kids or whatever he had, and says that God told him to come back here and start a church in a racetrack. And MRO came into existence. 1988 at Darlington was the first time that Max held a service in the garage area.
Man, that's interesting. So the MRO.
That's where it all started.
Yeah. For a lot of people that are listening, the MRO, Motor Racing Outreach is church at the racetrack. Church. And so I remember.
And now
Dad,
church in the garages,
right.
and then in the shops. And
you'd go
everywhere.
you'd go to, they do throughout the week. They are moving in and around the industry from building to building, having prayer and services and so forth. They do a lot of amazing things on the charitable initiative for our sport and our industry. But one of the things that I remember is Dad going. Dad would go to the service, and it might be, they'd throw down some chairs in the garage, in the old empty end of the garage somewhere. They do it wherever we could.
Goodyear, sit on some tires at Goodyear's place.
Yeah, and people just kind of sat around, and there would be a short, brief, 20, 30-minute service.
We even had, for a period of there, we had some singers that were people that were involved in racing that were singing. And had music. 9 yards. It
was a lot. I mean, and I don't remember. I didn't know the origins of the MRO, but I will. I'm thankful for it today because it's really my daughter's favorite thing.
Yeah.
So like Isla, 6 years old. I don't know what her interest in racing might be, and I won't. If she were to racing for me has been every day. It's what it's in part of my DNA, right? And I want to be a part of this sport, or do something in it, or be a piece of it somehow, some way. And I hope whatever we have going on professionally might be something they would want to carry on. It's not a necessity, but I want it to be available to them. And so for her to have any interest in being at the racetrack is like this first hurdle.
Yeah.
And so she loves going to the racetrack, and the reason why is MRO. Yeah. And it is a safe place for them to be in and around the racetrack. Young kids, there's a lot of places where they don't have access. I can't take my girls to the pits. They can't sit on a pit box. They can't, I can't be in those areas. So the MRO is a place where I know they can have fun, be around other kids their age.
And they get some learn some very good character qualities and just life-changing things, foundational things.
Yeah. And they have a little staff there that's amazing.
Unreal.
Yeah. And so I'm very thankful for it.
I'm going to tell you something else they do that probably most people don't know about, is they have training for chaplains to be chaplains at other racetracks all over the country.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. They'd come and teach you how to do ministry at the racetrack.
Yeah. And one of the other things, too, that I think is really neat about that is the pastors that we do have at the racetrack they become so woven into the fabric of your life. They'll be the pastor that officiates your wedding, or a crew member's wedding, so they're. Since to your point, like we don't go to a regular church. I'm a member of a Lutheran church in Mooresville, but I rarely go because, we've been at the racetrack for all these decades.
Exactly.
And so the pastor at the MRO at the NASCAR events tends to become your personal pastor. Right? Exactly. And when you got questions and you got things you need to talk, they're there for you. It's awesome. And I'm thankful for your involvement in that because it has served so many people in our industry in all kinds of ways.
Oh, yeah.
And it's become, I don't know, it's become an integral part of our DNA.
I've had a NASCAR official tell us at one time, said MRO is the glue that keeps everything stuck together.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It serves
back when it was really, really dangerous to be driving these things.
That's true.
They were the ones that were at the hospital. They were the ones that were handling the families and all.
When we ever had, anytime we ever had a very traumatic event, you'd always have a few more people show up next week. And it got their attention, when we'd have some close calls, and I know that we'd all have these moments in our lives where we needed to gravitate towards something, and we tended to go toward the MRO and trying to find some answers, or just some, making sense of what's going on either in our personal life. Help. Yeah. And so I'm very thankful for that. Thank you for bringing that up and shining a light on the MRO. They're still a massive part of what we're doing in our industry, as you know. And that's a great way to close this out. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Me and you both.
Thank you for coming by. Thanks for being available and still being out there telling your story. I will tell you this. I've always thought you had a great story and a neat story. But I've seen you sharing it a little bit here over the past couple of years on social media, taking people through your shop. Stapleton came through and done a story with you. I thought that was fantastic, and I'm thankful for you doing that, because it does introduce some of the younger fans to who you are. Right. Your name's recognizable. It's an amazing name for a race car driver. But
got a sense of humor, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so, people recognize the name, but now they're really truly being reintroduced to you. And I think they're going to enjoy this show. So thanks a lot for coming through.
Yeah. And it's not made up. Dad's one of 7 speed boys. There was a bunch of them back in Mississippi where we were from.
I believe it. Lake Speed on the Dale Jr. Download. All right, so great interview with Lake Speed. I'm thankful to had the opportunity to talk to him. Lake is, leans heavy into his faith, and I wanted to give him the opportunity to talk about that because it is something that's important to him. And so I feel like we allowed him to share, share that. And I really found, I guess this is the way the kind of interview went for me. Like, I was really interested in the go-karting part because it's, Lake Speed, that guy that won the World Karting Championship, beat Ayrton Senna. And that's where it ends, right? So I kind of wanted to know, all right, what was the lead up? And so it's a lot of fun for me to get into those details. The only problem is you get to, right around 1984 when he gets to the Raymok deal, and it's an hour and 15 minutes into the conversation, and I got to figure out how to get us to the finish line in 30 minutes, but or in somewhere around that. So we kind of did, compress the back half of his career. There's probably a ton there, I'm sure, that I would have loved to have gotten to, but there is one thing that he mentioned when he got up from the table. He's still racing go-karts. At 77 years old, I thought he had quit racing, and even said that to him. But apparently he's still messing with go-karts and says that he goes all over the country running vintage karts and just having fun. He's got some old vintage karts that there's still a group of folks that enjoy those. So pretty fantastic guy. Looks like he's in great shape for his age. And it's kind of one of them deals where certainly, you wish, what could he have done in the right situation? He did find himself behind the wheel of a couple of really good rides that just didn't really kind of pan out. The opportunity with Yates was very brief because they were bringing in Ernie Irvin. But I'm not somebody that speaks about their own faith a lot. I have my own position and beliefs, and I do feel like that his life, I don't know if predetermined is the right word, but like the path he went down was the one he was supposed to go down, and I think that's probably why he might be able to be more content with the way things didn't pan out, because he really did have some moments that really impacted him personally throughout his life. He sees a bigger picture, right, than just top fives and wins and success at just the racing level. There's something, he's sort of driven by something bigger than that. And the other thing too is he did take this team. And if you dive into some of the details, and especially some of the things he's done lately on social media and this story today, you will learn, right, that they had to really they had to kind of like strike gold to a certain extent with almost every hire and everything every person part and every dime spent had to be really, really clever and smart. And for him to have success in the Wins car and build the speed that he's able to build in that car, to go from Raymok to start his own team to win at Darlington in 1988. I know his budget was super tight with the Wins folks. They were involved in racing, but probably not one of the bigger sponsorships. He had less people, less finances, so pretty incredible they were able to get the speed they were. He capitalized on the Hoosier tire in some certain areas where some other teams did as well around that time frame. But just he's got a cool story, and I like the fact that he ain't stopped. I talk to all these guys. I'm like, how do you stop? I don't know if I can stop. And he ain't stopped. He's still having fun and driving and at some level, right? Getting out there and feeling the adrenaline. That's pretty cool. So thanks for Lake and his time. Great interview. Another one of these fun DJD guest interviews in the books. Let's get to the white flag. All right, the teardown. They were live on Twitter and YouTube following the race at Homestead. Some great, great reaction to what we saw on this past weekend at Homestead. Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi, just those guys, their take, it's measured. They debate. You can kind of buy into both sides at times. Sometimes maybe not, but it's still fun to listen to these guys conversate, because I'll be honest with you, I think I know freaking everything about this sport. Now, I know in the back of my mind that is not absolutely true, but I get really heavily convicted on some certain stances, right? And I need this teardown. Like, I need to listen to these guys because they kind of get me into a better place in a lot of areas. And I'll be frustrated with one thing or frustrated with another thing, and they kind of give me the details, the things that I really need to know. It's such a great show. Door Bumper Clear had Jamie McMurray on this past Monday. Jamie is always an incredible guest. A lot of people are really enjoying what he's doing in the booth for the CW. Just a fantastic addition to our broadcast ecosystem in NASCAR. And, when we can get him on the show, it's always a lot of fun because he brings a lot of great vantage points and opinions. Carson Quapple surprised Jamie during the show to announce his Darlington throwback paint scheme. If you haven't seen it, it looks amazing. Great job by the folks upstairs to bring back that historical car that Jamie McMurray had so much success with. Actions Detrimental also dropped on Monday. Denny having a pretty solid day out in Homestead. Gives us his feedback and take on everything going on in the sport. Lake Speed, obviously, the guest today. And Herman Schrader and Speed Street, that drops as well today. You want to listen to what Herman Schrader think about what's going on in the industry. They touch on some things sort of outside of all of the conversations that we have here at Dirty Mo Media. It's always fun to see what they think is important or what they think we need to be talking about. And Herman and Schrader, they do a good job with that. Speed Street's always a great listen, especially as we're diving into the IndyCar season. They bring a lot of great insight on what's going on in the IndyCar world every Wednesday. Bless Your Heart is back on Thursday. I got a new chair. I'm excited. Me and Amy had a blast last week. No telling what we're going to get into this week. And don't forget, you're starting to see some of the gear that we've been talking about at our new merch store, shop.dirtymomedia.com. We've got hats, shirts, sweatshirts, even drinkware. I'm wearing all this stuff on the show because I like it. This little sweater right here, this logo, awesome stuff. Last week had a hat on, so trying to drop in some of this stuff where you can see what we have. If you haven't checked out the store, shop.dirtymomedia.com. Any of our podcasts, we've got gear for all of those. We've also got some just fun, silly stuff that we've created T-shirts and whatnot with from things we've said on our shows. Amy is doing a lot of the creative or part of a lot of the creative on any of the Bless Your Heart stuff. So if it looks different or it looks better, that's why. Y'all have fun. It's been a great week.